Of the various vehicles which I talk about in GT6 in terms of revisiting these reviews and seeing which ones have the best chance of returning in a future Gran Turismo update or a future Gran Turismo game, there are two distinctly different camps. You've got certain cars which are pretty much, at least you would think, a dead cert. Stuff like your DC5 Integra, your C5 Corvette, cars which, of course, you would expect to see come back, plus the fact that they're already premiums, well, even more so. Then, you've got others which are possible, popular even, and people would love to see them return in many cases, and again, probably a premium car or two here or there, but you could just as easily see it not happen as happen. And I'm thinking more so of stuff like the DeltaWing, for example, or the WSR Formula Senna car. Yes, people would love it, yes, they could be very useful vehicles, but I could, as I said, just as easily see it not returning as returning. This to me probably swings a little bit more in that direction, but again it does tie in to a massively iconic car in the series which we have seen return, for the first time ever mind you, in premium form, the Escudo. This of course is not from Suzuki, it's not an Escudo, it's a wildly different approach to Pikes Peak, being as it is a fully electric monster, but speaking of monster, that is of course the connection. Monster Tajima. This is the Tajima E-RUNNER, and of course Tajima himself drove said Suzuki Escudo up Pikes Peak. I believe he drove the Cultus as well before it, one of my personal favourite underdogs. This one is wildly different, as I said, to the other Pikes Peak cars which we've seen in the game, and if they were to bring back Tajima in this form, I would prefer it if they were to do the Tajima Rimac version, because that's even more powerful than this, and having Rimac involved in Gran Turismo would be super badass, in my opinion. Now, this car is not listed with very many specs that you can research in the game, but if you use the actual garage sorting menu, if you will, you can figure out roughly how much at least horsepower and weight it has. The weight on it is fairly high, but the power, of course, is the most important thing in terms of what you care about from an electric vehicle, because they're always going to be heavy. You need to make up for that with sheer horsepower. How much does this one have? Well, 888. 888 horsepower is TVR territory. That's a proper Speed 12 rival, but of course with direct drive, fully electric, it's not a hybrid, four-wheel drive as well, and of course this has, at least in spirit, been kind of taken over by the Volkswagen IDR Pikes Peak being involved in Gran Turismo instead. Now personally, of the two, I definitely prefer the Volkswagen, but at the same time, you do kind of have to talk about the Volkswagen, because for such an awesome car, which broke multiple lap records in its wake, barely any players use it in Gran Turismo, and that really does speak to just how badly electric cars are implemented into the game. There are some which are useful, probably most notably the Tesla. It's far faster with all-wheel drive compared to the Model S, which we already had, and for events that don't require fuel use, certainly in certain point levels, for example, for road cars in particular, the sheer acceleration is very difficult to beat, and that makes it a fantastic weapon. The Volkswagen does not have that advantage most of the time. Now, I personally do use mine occasionally. I've detuned it to around, I think it was 700 points or so. Of course, you have to really restrict the power to get it to that level, but again, the acceleration is still so good, it's so fun to drive. The Tajima would fall into a similar rut. This one would be interesting as well, because I don't see them fitting this into a Group B class. You'd kind of have to do what the Escudo has, which is just focus on a point level. Still doesn't really make sense. I personally believe if you were going to do this properly, and of course you'd need more than probably just two cars, but Group S, for example, would make more sense, because that's kind of tied into this Pikes Peak era anyway. Group S was going to be even more crazy than Group B, so it would make sense to have something like that for cars like this. At the same time though, it would limit vehicles like that in terms of career mode use, so it swings and roundabouts in terms of improvements or liabilities in terms of what you can actually do with the car. In terms of pricing, at least in GT6, this was 1.6 million credits, and like I said earlier on, I could just as easily see this car never coming back as I could seeing it come back. Probably a little bit more so on the negative side, to be honest. I'd say there's maybe more like a 60-40 split at best against this car, I would say. At the same time though, this does not have the same fan fervour as many other Japanese cars. Like road stuff, even like JDM Icons, you know, Civics, Evos, etc. have far more people who want them in the game, so yes, it would be a shame to not necessarily have one of the most unique rally cars that Gran Turismo's ever featured return, but at the same time, not all is lost because of said Volkswagen. I do think that that is the saving grace of this not being in the game. If we had nothing like this at all, well, many people wouldn't care, because a lot of you I know don't care for electric vehicles, even if they were well implemented. I personally love them for the same reason why Jay Leno likes alternative tech. We're very much on the same page there, and that is I couldn't care less about the environment, but I love different ways of doing things. Hydrogen, rotary, turbines, diesels, petrols, electric even, they're just wildly different approaches to accomplishing the same goals of performance or fun. And when it comes to sheer performance, if not fun, well, you cannot deny, if you like them or not, that electric cars are ridiculously quick. This past weekend, at Goodwood, for example, the Ford electric supervan broke the record yet again. Fully electric vehicle. So, it's undeniable, like I said. The Volkswagen itself, multiple record holder. The Tajima not quite as crazy as those, which is why I said if they were to bring back Tajima, I think the Rimac would be an even better solution to doing it. Because it's not going to be the most useful thing around unless stuff like pit-ins are changed, but at least if you are going to bring it back, make it stupidly quick, and then at least it's really fun. That's it for my thoughts on the Tajima though. I would love to hear yours, because I could see this being a bit of a divisive car. Some people probably love it, some people couldn't care less, maybe some people just hate it because it's electric, and of course I'll see you in future for more GT6 vehicles, which I think have a good to moderate to sometimes lower chance of returning in Gran Turismo in the future. But for now, thanks for watching.